So what can we actually say from this? Well, we can say that it looks like, based on the ceramics that I have that are within the published record, and there may be stuff that I'm unaware of, but based on the stuff that I have, within the range of the Book of Mormon's prediction, in the correct place as predicted by anthropologist John Sorensen, dating to roughly the time period, but we can't get precise on that yet. There is a city submerged in the lake that got submerged in the exact same fashion as described in the Book of Mormon text itself.
Glory, glory, glory.
There's like three or four different possibilities of how that description in the Book of Mormon could have happened geologically.
Here we have a sunken city.
Most people don't notice this, but all the great cities in the Book of Mormon were destroyed.
This is a likely candidate. I think this of the waters of Mormon.
Is the Mormon Atlantis? Is that a good name? Are we calling it the Mormon Atlantis? The following is an episode of Ward Radio and does not represent the thoughts or the opinions of KHTS, its owners, or any of its affiliates, nor does it represent the official opinion of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. With that said, sit back, relax, and enjoy the program.
It makes absolute sense why somebody would want to have a holy ritualistic city in the place that is actually in this island that's submerged. I think Jerusalem's a great name.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ward Radio. I am your host, Cardinellis. Today I'm joined in the studio by Josh Gailey, author of Witnessing Miracles, Historical Evidence for the Resurrection, and the Book of Mormon, as well as by Jerry Grover, author of Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon, certified civil engineer and geologist. And we're going to be talking about a bold claim. The claim is intriguing that the sunken cities of the Book of Mormon have been found, and that the land of Jerusalem, as described in the Book of Mormon, is exactly that way. That these sunken cities have proved that the land of Jerusalem is exactly the way it is described in the Book of Mormon. That is a very bold, a very provocative claim. Josh Gailey, back it up, go.
Well, let's hit up the first slide. What everybody's going to see is a description. So Mormon is our geographer in the Book of Mormon. He's our narrator, cool. He's our librarian, and he's going to describe all these places and events and north and south and their geographic correspondences to each other when we're going uphill, when we're going downhill. And John Sorensen has this great image of an internal Book of Mormon map where we're saying, hey, 550, 600 different places. Let's look at that and let's find them in a map where we can make it and say, this is Mormon's map. This is the inside map of the text. And when we do that in Alma chapter 21, verses 1 and 2, what we're going to see in the Book of Mormon is a description. So it talks about Ammon and his brethren doing missionary work. And when they're doing missionary work, they're going into this area, and there's a city there called Jerusalem, and it was named that by the Lamanites calling it after their father's nativity, and it was joining the borders of Mormon. So
okay, you said it's Alma chapter 1?
Alma chapter 21.
Oh, chapter 21. Okay, I put up Alma chapter 1. Alma chapter 21. Okay, keep going.
Chapter 21, verses 1 and 2, and it's just real brief, but it's going to describe the fact that you have the land of Mormon and the city of Jerusalem. They're kind of somehow next to each other in the geographic relationship of the Book of Mormon lands and the lands southward. And now what's famous about the land of Mormon is the fact that we have the beautiful waters of Mormon where Alma baptized. These are events and places. This missionary trip with Ammon, there's things going on, and these are places that we know that's in the land southward. And the description of this seems to be a large body of water for there to be a city that's somehow connected to or adjacent to that where there's a land surrounding it. So possibly, in what was predicted by anthropologist John Sorensen, is that there would be a lake that would correspond to the waters of Mormon, and it would be, and if you look at the very next slide versus the map slide where we see a lake that's proposed on the inside map, when we try and overlay that into a real world setting within Mesoamerica, what we see is there's a lake in Guatemala called Lake Actitlan that is in the rough geographical correspondence in such a way that John said, this is a likely candidate. I think this is the waters of Mormon, even so much so that based on all the information within the text, he even said, I think on the southwest side of this lake, one day we're going to find the submerged city. That's what he said.
Wow.
45 years ago, John Sorensen said, I'm predicting a city to be buried in this lake based on my model of where the Book of Mormon took place.
Wait. So John Sorensen predicted that there would be a sunken city in this lake based off of Book of Mormon geography.
Yes.
And has been vindicated.
That
years
was
later?
his hypothesis. And so the reason why I said that is in 3 Nephi chapter 9, verse 7. This is the infamous, and what is happening in the Book of Mormon is there's this great destruction at the crucifixion of Christ. When Christ dies, there's a great destruction and begins to list these cities. And one of the cities it says is the great city of Jerusalem and the inhabitants thereof, and the waters have I caused to come up in the stead thereof, to hide their wickedness and abominations from before my face, that the blood of the prophets and the saints shall not come up any more to me against them. So the prediction from John Sorensen was that there's going to be a city that somehow the waters have come up on them in some form of rapid fashion that would have flooded the location and made that city uninhabitable anymore. And Lake Atitlan, within the last 20 years, Jerry, it was right around 2000 when some of these publications started coming out, where there was a scuba diver who was diving in the southwest part of the lake. Again, the lake predicted by John Sorensen to be the waters of Mormon, and the lake that he predicted in the southwest area would be this city. Well, actually, it's due south. In the due south part of the lake, there's actually an island buried in the lake, submerged about 60 feet down, that has a sunken Mayan city.
Get out of town.
And so let's press pause on that, and let's toss the ball over to Jerry just for a moment and let Jerry talk about the geology of some of the volcanic and seismic activity surrounding Lake Atitlan and what might have happened, because there's a lot of actual fluctuations to the water depths within this lake.
Wow. Okay, keep going. Jerry, hit us, man.
Okay. Well, Lake Atitlan does not have an outlet. So how does the water get out? It goes through a fracture system in the rock and seeps through that. It's a volcanic caldera. The lake sits in a volcanic caldera, which is basically a huge volcano cone, the top of the cone.
Yeah.
But a huge one. So when you're looking at, the description is the waters came up. So the city sunk and the waters came up in the stead thereof. So there are a couple different, probably 3 different ways that could happen. There is documented on the other side of the lake, there was a huge landslide, but they don't know the chronology of it. But that's a potential. So if you have an earthquake, because we know there was an earthquake during the 3rd Nephi destruction, right? Quakings. You could have triggered a landslide, which would have then sent like a large wave across the lake and inundated the city, because you have to have a short time frame, right? Because it killed everybody.
Yeah.
The second is the earthquake itself could have changed the bottom of the lake, which could have moved the water up.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean, it deformed the lake. There is also a volcano. Well, it's actually the Toloman volcano. It has they call it like a slave volcano. It's just a small volcano next to it that erupted, they think, around this time frame. It's not been radiometrically dated or anything. So that's another possibility. And the lava ran, they've actually tracked it, the bottom of the lake.
There's a lava flow that they can track.
Yeah, into the lake. So that could have also heated the water and also raised the water level.
Okay.
There's another one. There's actually the guys.
Like an overboiling pot, right?
Yeah, and plus the lava displaced, so because there's material going into the lake, it pushes the water level.
Okay, rock on.
And then the other is, I actually there was a seismic work done on the lake by Scripps, which is an organization that does research.
Yeah.
And I actually talked to the guy that did the research, and he said they took sediment samples from the bottom of the lake as well. And
that's cool.
And he said, but in the middle of the night, so they got off the lake and they went into their camp. In the middle of the night, they woke up, there were all these popping sounds, and it was the tubes popping open of all the sediment cores that they had taken. And essentially what he told me is he said that all the sediments are full of gas because it's a volcanic caldera. And so you could have had, with an eruption, you could have had a release of the gas, almost like a seltzer type thing. So that you had all this gas moving up, which increases the volume of the lake, which would then push, the lake higher and inundate almost instantaneously the city. So there's like three or four different possibilities of how that description in the Book of Mormon could have happened geologically.
So there's one other descriptor of the actual city that happens in the Book of Mormon that we actually understand some of the plan and purpose for this city. So in Alma 21:4, so actually Ammon preaches there. Okay, he goes down there and he's preaching to them, and he's preaching in their synagogues. And so it seems to be a place, when he's going there, that it seems to be a place of ritual and different belief system, but one that he would be welcome to go into and preach his own religion within that environment. So it's a place where there was definitely some form of ritualistic worship going on for this group of people that he is trying to preach to and convert. That's Alma 21:4. So that's a little bit of information about the city, just gleaned from the text, gleaned out of Alma 21, that we know about this city, Jerusalem, which makes sense in the context of the fact that the Lamanites build this city and talk about it and call it Jerusalem and attribute it to, obviously, a holy city from their past, right?
Yeah, one of the interesting things is, and this is a larger topic, but it's also described as a great city. Well, it's actually not that large of an island. A lot of people thought great city, well, that means population in the Book of Mormon. But actually, if you look,
just had a really cool vibe, some nice boutique shops on Main Street, like some solid coffee shops on 2nd Street.
Great ceramics that we're going to talk about in a minute.
Great ceramics. Okay, sweet.
But actually, if you look, like the city of Moroni was created, then 40 years later, it's called a great city. Ammoniah, they called themselves a great city. Nobody else did. Great. And if you know, most people don't notice this, but all the great cities in the Book of Mormon were destroyed. So it's actually looking more of a prideful ceremonial center, kind of, pagan, meaning
great somehow tied to judgment that's coming. Great in pride. Iniquity, great in pride.
Yeah, and that's a definition, in English of great. So it's people of just, great city, that must be large population. No,
totally.
It's actually a different descriptor that they may have had a large population, but that's not why they were called great. It was because they were prideful, and then they're all destroyed. So,
and it's probably one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. I mean, this is a absolutely gorgeous setting. The volcanoes that surround it. I mean, it's picturesque. It makes absolute sense why somebody would want to have a holy ritualistic city in the place that is actually in this island that's submerged. So the water levels are higher today than what they used to be. And archaeology demonstrates that, because if you keep going, let's hit some of the fun slides.
Okay.
Yeah, I failed to mention. So you actually get a lot of fluctuation in this lake because it has no outlet. It has no static outlet. If the fractures tighten after an earthquake, it raises. Or if they get plugged.
This lake doesn't have any river coming out of it, similar to kind of like the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is the Dead Sea because it has no outlet, and so all the salt has built up over thousands of years, and so on and so forth.
This is fresh water, but
this is fresh water, but its outlet is actually all of just the seismic fractures underneath the lake, just kind of
seeps out. Yeah,
just seeping out. Okay, where's it seeping out to?
It then collects into a river, I think, to the south. East.
It's not the north. I know that.
Yeah.
I've driven over the north.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Keep going.
So eventually it would flow into the Pacific. I mean, eventually this water's going into the Pacific. So,
okay. So it's just underground water that's becoming now the fount of some other river somewhere else, but there's just no smoking gun of like, okay, the water, and it's not like Lake Tahoe. You know what I'm saying? All right, cool. Awesome.
So scuba diver 20-ish, 25 years ago is scuba diving in the lake, and they began to find some incredible things. Now there's, I think there's at least a dozen, it might even be up to 17. The number of stelas, Jerry, that are part of this, that they're actually blank stelas. They don't have any writing on them, but they're clearly tied to the ritualistic faith of the practice. The overwhelming archaeology of this submerged city that they found, it's called Samabaj. Okay, Samabaj, Samabaj. But the actual, that's a modern name. That's just the discoverer named that. We don't actually know the name archaeologically of what the people at this time period called this city. but they found that on this submerged island that there's this complete small city that existed there that was for some form of early pre-classic Maya ritualistic worship center, which overlaps in time to the time period of the Book of Mormon. So let me just say this, because of the way they found the pottery and because of the way some of the archaeology was laid out on the island itself, it demonstrates the fact that the water rose fairly quickly. Exactly how quickly you can't demonstrate. It doesn't seem like it killed anybody, okay? But what it was an evacuation that had to take place.
It happened probably slow enough that people could get off the island, but not so over such a long period of time they could finish the stele that they were
there's actually
chiseling,
okay,
right?
so the blank stela are actually, what's interesting about them is there's a number of cities that are connected within pre-classic Maya that have the blank stela as part of their ritual, and so it seems to be a site that would be connected with that practice. You have a lot of diverse culture happening within Mesoamerica around the same time. There are different groups practicing similar things, but with their own tweak on it in the time period. So it's super fun. This is a place that you can actually scuba dive to if you wanted and knew the exact location.
Dude, we are going.
Let's do this.
We are going.
Pack our bags. This is the taste.
There's no alligators, right?
Send your check to Ward Radio. We need to fund the trip. Yeah. No alligators yet. So
okay.
And then then the question ultimately is when, right? That's the elephant in the room is when did this happen? Because if this happened in 800 AD, it doesn't matter, right? Like it matters. It's cool for archaeology. It's still a great site we should all visit and scuba dive to. Yes. But it is not relevant to Book of Mormon time. And so I've dug into this a little bit, and I see some controversial, some of the videos that are out there that people talk about, they say, well, it's up to 300 AD. So I said, okay, well, what does that mean exactly? And as an archaeologist, I wanted to check out the ceramics, because the way you're going to date this, and if you hit the next slide, Carden, the way you would date a site archaeologically from this time period is going to be through the ceramic material. That's how you're going to get relative dating. So ceramics change, and think of like fashion styles with clothes. People wear different clothes over time, and you can actually look at photos from somebody in the 80s and be like,
so are these like bell-bottom ceramics?
Exactly. Ceramic changes over like hundreds of years, and those changes can get tracked, and you can relatively date things on sites based on the ceramic material. So with that being said, if you actually pull up the last slide, and this last slide is going to help us to date things. Okay. There is what's called, and I'm going to try and say this correctly, and everybody can check this out. Check out mammiform tetrapods within the archaeological record of the Mayan, or what you're going to be looking at is the pre-classic Maya time period. And this is something that would be dated somewhere within 50 BC until up to 300 AD.
And for those of you that are listening on the radio, what this looks like is basically just like a clay bowl in which 4 clay legs have been
little
installed.
Stubby legs.
Yeah, just like little stubby legs that almost look like your grandmother's. I love the 1960s furniture where they had those skinny angular legs that would come out of the bottoms of TVs, console radios, chairs. It looks like somebody just cut at the 3 inches the 1960s feet that were on your parents' 1960s furniture, your grandparents' 1960s furniture. And what is this called again?
This is called a mammogram tetrapod, is I believe the mammiform tetrapod.
Yeah, a mammogram tetrapod. Mammiform, yeah. So a mammiform tetrapod. Okay, it sounds like a dinosaur, not a clay pod.
Yeah, archaeologists are great at naming stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But so what this shows is this ceramic style ranges from about 50 BC to about 300 AD. And so what an archaeologist would say is we know the city was buried no later than 300 AD. So you'll see conservative statements like that. But the ceramic pottery is within the range of the Book of Mormon, not submersion, because it says the waters came up, but it's within the range. So here we have a sunken city. And what I want to do is dig into the archaeological record. There's not enough published on this site yet. I just want to offer a critique. We need more published archaeological data on this site. I want more information about the ceramics that are there.
Yeah.
There's not enough there for us to 100% date this thing yet. You know, so from what I have seen from the published record, you could say, yes, this fits from about 50 BCE to about 300 CE, and somewhere within that range, this thing became underwater. This thing got submerged.
Okay.
The waters came up on it. I would love to see more ceramic material, and I would love to see some more publications in the archaeological record for us to define that even more. Because you'll even see in that article that was in the Archaeology magazine that's up, it says four-legged pot in situ, you know, and the archaeologist basically says dating before 300 AD, and that's because of the type of the ceramic material. So it's dating this site to pre-classic, which is ranging from about 250 BCE to about 300 CE or AD. And so that's what you're getting within this range. And we just need more published. And you're going to see when you go to the museum there, you're going to see some pots and different things that are even dated beyond that, because guess what happens? The lake shore is still surrounded by people living there that are still creating. There's still archaeology happening at the seashore, even when the city gets submerged, right? So there's going to be later stuff that comes from the seashore. But what I am super interested in is what is coming out of the archaeological record from the submerged island itself, because that is capturing a city in a certain place at a certain time. So what can we actually say from this? Well, we can say that it looks like, based on the ceramics that I have that are within the published record, and there may be stuff that I'm unaware of, but based on the stuff that I have within the range of the Book of Mormon's prediction, in the correct place as predicted by anthropologist John Sorensen, dating to roughly the time period, but we can't get precise on that yet. There is a city submerged in the lake that got submerged in the exact same fashion as described in the Book of Mormon text itself. It could be one of the greatest bullseyes ever for Book of Mormon archaeology, but we just don't have enough information to say for sure yet. And Jerry, I've been talking a lot, so
yeah, yeah. Jump to Jerry, go.
Okay,
we got another minute or two, man. Tell us what you think as a geologist, man. Hit it.
Well, one thing too is because of the nature of the lake, which I described, there's also been volcanic eruptions. Maybe there was a river at one point, but blocked it up. We have a lot of history there. Is you have, and even recently, you have these multiple fluctuations. So even if the dating is a little bit later, archaeology may show that there was multiple inundations of the site, meaning it was inundated, came back up.
50 years later, the water went down again, and guess what people are going to want to do on a pretty island?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why you do need, even if the pot, because the pottery that they discovered, I mean, it looks like it was abandoned quick. I mean, they
quickly.
left. Yes. Yeah. So, but which could occur multiple times in that lake. So I'm just saying there may be
more to the story.
Yeah, and that's what you would find by
actually
excavating, finding out if there are different, occupation layers, that kind of thing. There are two other cities that were actually, the Book of Mormon says, were destroyed in a similar fashion. It's not the only possibility. Let's say Samabaj isn't it. You could have like a river blocked, and then and there's a city right along the side of the river. It races,
washed out.
Yeah, washes out. So I mean, it's not like there's two other cities. Would we expect to find them in Lake Atitlan? Well, maybe. I don't know. There's some indication of another site, on the other side of the lake. But so there are other possibilities. I mean, again, this is. But if in fact it does, pan out to chronologically, then you'd say, yeah, this is actually a good candidate for Jerusalem. The other two cities, we don't really know where they were because they're only mentioned. The only time they're mentioned is when they were destroyed. So we don't know where they.
Super fun to look at. Can't wait to get there one day.
So here's my last question is, before we go, gosh, I swear I could talk to you guys for hours and it would be awesome. But like, first off, how cool would it be to be that scuba diver that's just scuba diving along and all of a sudden start seeing Mayan pots floating around? Okay. I want to know how many of them he took before he ended up calling the authorities and being like, yeah, I think I found a sunken city. You know, that guy's got something cool
like
on his
all
show.
of us, that answer would be 0 because we're all going to be good archaeologists and let the researchers do their work. So,
you know, anyway, and then the other thing too is what kind of corruption would we have to worry about in fresh water? Like, for example, you know, in Turkey and the Black Sea, we know that when you get deeper and deeper and deeper, that the oxygenation levels change. And so they've been able to actually find some wildly preserved boats from ancient times that have lasted longer there in the Black Sea than they would have perhaps in the Mediterranean. And of course, I'm regurgitating the facts and figures of
water's helpful.
Those specifics.
Water's helpful. It's when you pull it out of the water that you really have to be careful. So water is in general helpful for preserving, you know.
Yeah, I don't know about the site itself. I know there was a tree. They were trying to find things to radiometric date that were underwater.
Okay.
And there was like a tree, not at the island, but further, you know, adjacent, a tree stump that had survived that they dated to at least try to figure out one of the inundations, you know. So maybe it is a good spot for preserving of organic matter. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Sweet.
Time will tell.
Well, this is pretty cool. And I don't know. We need to give this place a good name. Is the Mormon Atlantis? Is that a good name? Are we calling it the Mormon Atlantis?
I think Jerusalem's a great name.
Okay, awesome. We'll do that. Anyway, as always, guys, thank you so much for showing up. If you want to check out his book, the name of the book is Witnessing Miracles, Historical Evidence for the Resurrection and the Book of Mormon by one Josh Gailey. Or you can check out Calendars and Chronology of the Book of Mormon, written by Jerry Grover, to see more about how all of the really cool lunar and solar calendars of the Mayans and the ancient peoples coincide exactly as described in the Book of Mormon. It is some seriously cool archaeology, some seriously cool geology, some seriously cool, not astrology, astronomy. Although, hey, maybe we could just throw in some astrology there on a fun Friday night. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, as always, guys, this has been,
it has some.
It has some astrology.
In it. Yeah.
All right. So we should be burning incense next time we, do this radio show.
Holy radio.
Kidding. Or Noah.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. Awesome. So anyway, guys, as always, for this and more, please check us out at worldradio.com.